We're very excited to show you what we've been working on for real user monitoring for performance management. And for real user, we're trying to, we're solving a problem where there's a lot of device fragmentation. You have users coming from multiple areas in the world using multiple devices, whether it be desktop, tablet, mobile, some game consoles, smart TVs. The devices from which they're coming in are changing and are evolving every day. And then when we look at performance as well as user behavior, we're seeing how performance challenges the user behavior or metrics that we use for the business objectives, because performance at the end of the day matters when your users are interacting with your site. We've seen in multiple studies as well as with our own correlated data that performance has a clear effect on the conversion rate. So if you're trying to convert a customer into a subscribed customer or have them check out in your cart for a retail organization, how fast that site loads is important to that user's experience. We've also learned that it's a very small amount of time that it takes for you to have a competitive edge over your competitors in the industry, and that is about 250 milliseconds or a quarter of a second can be a competitive differentiator between yourself and your competitors. So what real user measurements allow us is to bring performance in context. We're bringing in your synthetic data that you're collecting for errors in the lab environment, and then merging that with the real user measurements, where you're able to see the performance of each user that visits your site, as well as how long does it take for them to finish a conversion transaction like a subscribe, and then see how that performance correlates to whether they were successful in converting to the customer. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking to your colleagues in the line of business from the IT side, nobody gets excited about, I got my page down to 3 seconds, under 3 seconds. They get excited when you say, I also was able to increase our conversion rates by 2 or 3%, because that translates into real dollars for your business.
Oh yeah, you can just go to the next one. That's fine. Yeah. So what we wanted to really kind of help you to understand was this notion of taking performance and moving it into a context which really does help to make sense to the rest of the business organization. And one of the ways we think that it's really important for you to be able to do that is to be able to really understand what are the most important drivers of decision-making processes within the business organization, within the product team, within the marketing organization, that really help to advance some of the goals and objectives that they're trying to achieve in the context of the technology that you deliver and that is supporting the delivery of all those digital assets and that digital experience that the customer is going to have. And so it's interesting when you start looking at the mesh or the interplay between the measurement of that technical objective with the measurement of that business objective. And oftentimes that can be difficult, and oftentimes that can actually happen in a bit of a silo. And so what we found is that it's very important and it's critical to be able to understand how do you better align measures of technical quality, technical performance, technology experience with the customer's experience. Business and user experience really does make a difference when it can be supported directly by the correlation that the technology measurements that we all live and breathe by on a daily basis when we're delivering our digital assets. When those measurements can actually be correlated to substantiate the influence and the impact of specifically quality and performance on that end user experience, and how that can translate into different kinds of measures such as abandonment, such as growth, such as engagement and retention. And so really that's what we're here today to really explore and to talk about. And we feel that the things that we've been doing here at Keynote are really focused on advancing an agenda of being able to help you as technologists better relate to the business by sharing a common language.
So we're pretty much talking about the same thing, we're just not using the same language to talk about the same thing.
That's right.
So it's always a challenge when you talk to a very technical audience, they start giving you numbers on time to interactive, time to first paint, errors, and then you talk a line of business and they're talking about retention and growth and engagement in the site. And it's really interesting how especially the metric of engagement to the line of business is how long are people there, but engagement to the IT is how many concurrent database connections, how many people are on my site. And bridging those two languages together, I think it's a real challenge for a lot of companies, especially in those different silos that you talked about. So
yeah.
that's really what we're trying to solve, because now with real user measurements, you get that engagement and you get that DB connections, and you're able to put those two together to build the story.
And what's interesting is we've found that oftentimes there is a bit of a debate or perhaps and as we say, we kind of titled this slide here, he said, she said, with regard to, either blame or glory,
mm-hmm.
right, in regards to being able to substantiate how you're supporting your business objectives. At the end of the day, what we found, we actually did research with Forrester Research, which is a well-regarded analyst firm. And one of the questions, we did a poll. We surveyed about 200 individuals worldwide that sat in both the line of the business as well as within the technology organizations, the IT departments. And we asked both of those constituencies, what are the most important measurements of your digital strategies? What are the things that matter to you most? And what was interesting is that both the folks that sat in that line of business side of the house, as well as the IT side of the house, shared that they felt that the most important metrics to measure the success of their digital initiatives were essentially the same thing. They said the same thing. It's growth, it's conversion, it's also responsiveness, mm-hmm. it's error rate, right? And they tended to rank them in order in about the same importance. And so what's interesting is that people tend to have actually, regardless of whether or not you sit in IT or the line of business, similar goals and objectives. They kind of see the world the same way. And so really the question is, well, if you're trying to get to that same end place, how do you get there?
Yeah, and just a little commercial interruption. During the Keynote Connect sessions that we've had here in the U.S. and we're coming to Europe in the next couple of weeks. One of the big changes is that when he said, she said, sometimes he has the budget, now sometimes she has the budget. So those two different alignments are now a collaboration between the two groups, because not one person owns digital anymore. It's a combination of line of business and IT that share that responsibility and that budget for those digital investments.
So this might be a good point to maybe ask a bit of a question to the audience and get some feedback. So we thought maybe we would ask you a question in the form of a poll as to whether or not, in the way in which you are delivering your digital services today, you're actually kind of thinking about things the same way and in fact measuring both key user behavior metrics, measurements of how people are interacting with your digital assets, whether they be mobile applications or your web applications, along with the performance measurements associated with the delivery of those assets. So if you could take just a moment to answer our poll, you should see it inside of your screen here as to whether or not folks are actively measuring these two types of metrics today. And it looks like we have about a 50-50 split so far.
And then for those that do measure that, what metrics are you correlating? So maybe we can bring that poll over into view, so you can talk about the different.
And just for everybody's reference, so in the in the Adobe console here, hopefully, if you've gone into full screen mode, you might need to bring yourself back into the more interactive view in order to see the polls. Okay, this is interesting. Yeah, bounce rate showing up here. Looks like we've got maybe session length. Conversion is good. Yep, that's good. And this is actually fairly consistent, again, with the research that we did with Forrester, where we asked these questions. Not only what are the kinds of metrics that you would ideally like to be able to measure the success of your digital initiatives against, but what in fact are the measures that you have today that you can actually measure against. And so these are actually fairly consistent with the data that we got back. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for participating in the poll.
So now let's talk about our digital business optimization blueprint, of what we've been working on and realigning here at Keynote.
Yeah, so the Keynote platform, obviously as individuals, as customers who are familiar with a lot of the Keynote products that we have been providing and services we've been providing for years, you may not necessarily be aware of how they all kind of work together. And of course, Keynote has been acquiring companies over the course of time, but this is what we think is a really nice, clean way to visually represent the sum of all of the different parts, bits and parts of the Keynote platform today. And really what it spans is that we have offerings that deliver quality, performance, as well as a competitive research. We have an entire division that's dedicated to doing custom research that helps you to really understand not only how you stack up relative to your competitors, but then they provide value-added services that also help you take advantage of the data and the insights that you have with regard to how you're delivering your digital services and improve them and optimize them. But what's interesting here about this kind of overall view or vision is that it's substantiated fundamentally by the fact that we have really spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, and Abel is going to explain this in more detail, but a lot of time and effort really reconstructing the underpinnings for the Keynote services on top of new big data technology and foundations that help you to help us to deliver new products and services that really can help you achieve some of the goals that we're talking about here. Better communicating, better aligning in terms of your ability to correlate quality and performance with its impact on business outcomes. And today what we're going to be talking about, I think there's a build in this one, specifically is within the performance portion of this overall vision or view, where we offer services in both for mobile app monitoring as well as web monitoring, specifically our new real user monitoring service.
And how that brings it all and ties it all together in this performance stack.
Absolutely. Let's talk about real user monitoring.
Sure. And real user monitoring is our first product that has been built on this brand new architecture that allows us to do a high level of transactions in real time, so that when you're looking at your performance data, it's 2-second delay between the time someone is visiting your site to when you can visualize it in your dashboard. And then you can see everything in real time, and then you can correlate those user engagement metrics like bounce rate, conversion, exit rate for specific pages against performance from real users, and now as well as for synthetic. So you can now start looking at different geographies and how they compare different browsers, and maybe how their success rate is in the same pane of glass as you're viewing and visualizing all of your synthetic measurements. So performance and context. You can view the performance across all of your digital channels. If you're primarily desktop, primarily mobile, and maybe if you have gaming so that you are able to transact during smart TVs or gaming consoles, you'll be able to see all of those separated by those channels within your interface, as well as be able to see your type of OS, type of browser, type of phone that they're using. And then tie those performance with behavior. If your time to first paint and time to interactive starts suffering because of a third party or something like that you can visualize in your synthetic measurements, you can then see how that time to first paint is actually affecting the exit rate for a specific page. You don't want your cart page to have a high level of exit because you already got them there. And one of the things that we talk about is the line of business, marketing, everyone spends a lot of money trying to get that person to your site. And once they're in your site, it's the job of the digital experience to convert them and to really cater that experience so that they won't leave after you've spent a lot of resources getting their attention and bringing it in. Because we don't want to admit it, but our attention span is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we get bombarded with a lot more information. So how are we able to do all of this? And this is the new Keynote platform that integrates everything together. And the beauty of it is that it's built on big data technology, and it's also built on APIs. And we are able to not just consume the data ourselves via our APIs, but open it up for you to be able to integrate with BI tools. We all collect a large amount of data, and some of them is proprietary. You don't want it to go outside of your organization. We're able to plug that our real user measurements in, as well as our synthetic, and be able to visualize it side by side with tools like Splunk or Tableau for BI tools, and you can have access to that data in real time. So what does that allow us to do? Be able to do business impact with decisive action, because now you have your performance, you have your context, and you're able to bring those two together.
And what's interesting is that, Keynote for such a long time has been really a leader in synthetic monitoring, really simulating what a user can, simulating a user's action or interaction with a website or a mobile site or a mobile application. But now today, with bringing in our real user monitoring service offering, combining that with the synthetic legacy that we've had, this pedigree of a very crisp, very clean, very fine-grained, laboratory-grade, so to speak, measurement on the synthetic side, with all of the kind of the chaos, so to speak, that you get with real user measurement. It offers a really interesting opportunity, we think, for companies to be able to really understand the experience of the customer from a very holistic perspective, and that's where really this notion of being able to have a very holistic understanding, but also a combined fine-grained view into performance. It allows you to really understand and take decisive action. And that's a very unique offering, and we can provide that to you in one, basically in one environment.
And I think we've all gotten to the point where we're looking at our Keynote data, because we use it to measure our own systems as well. And you start looking at seeing performance alarms coming up, or maybe in availability. And sometimes you sit and you think to yourself, what is really happening out in the wild with all of those real users that are trying to transact with me right now? They're trying to get to their data. And being able to have that context and see it in real time, how your active number of sessions, how your active page views are changing, gives you that additional sense of urgency. Or you can say it's actually not affecting my real users. It's something that's maybe internal to my system, or it's internal to that specific network location where I don't have that many users. And now you can see the direct impact of those performance degradations and availability problems and error rates with your real users.
So what does that look like, Abel? I really would like to. Hopefully we've got. Yeah. Oh, great.
We have the new stuff.
Yeah.
So our goal with this next release of Keynote's real user monitoring is to bring all of this all of these data together. So being able to look at your hourly conversion rates and versus your error rates. As you get more errors, as your site becomes less available, what does that really do to your conversion rate? And you can actually tell the business that changes in performance or investments that you've now made in your infrastructure to make it faster or to reduce those error rates, how are they really affecting the conversion of the site and their business objectives where they see. Also performance versus bounce rate. How does my bounce, the people that come to your site, it takes too long and they're like, I don't forget it. And I think we've all been there when we try to navigate to a site, even sites as big as Amazon, they might have a third party that's blocking your ability to build the page completely. And again, you get distracted, somebody calls you, you start looking at something else, and now you've bounced and you've gone away, and that particular purchase that you were going to do, maybe it was an impulse purchase, is no longer happening because performance got in your way. And that's what we're solving with our new real user monitoring product. So let's take another poll with your if your multi-step transaction to monitor with Keynote. How do you determine these user journeys? Do you look at your analytics? Does people tell you exactly what that flow is supposed to be? How do you say, okay, this is the number of pages and this is the flow that I'm going to be doing for a specific customer?
Yeah, and really the relevance of this question is in the context of, again, understanding the user's journey, right? When we deliver our digital assets, we're not delivering a single page. We're not delivering just the home screen, so to speak, of a mobile application. Mm-hmm. Everything is designed around helping our customers complete certain journeys or transactions. And obviously for our customers on this call who have been building transactions and monitoring them using synthetic, scripting, so to speak, right? We scripting in Kite or scripting in Mite, our favorite tools. We're doing that because those are important. Those are important to us from a technology standpoint. They might help us understand how our application is being exercised across multiple tiers or perhaps multiple modules. It may also be related, and more often so, to what does the business think is the most important user journey or transaction or set of most important user journeys or transactions that our digital asset is intended to support. Mm-hmm. And so we just wanted to find out, do you feel that how in fact do you inform your decisions about how you go to script up these transactions?
Mm-hmm. And it looks like a line of business is specifying, and
yep.
Web analytics as well is a big thing. And,
right.
And we look at our Google Analytics to look at some of the main flows on the Keynote.com side. And I know that a lot of our consulting team looks at Omniture data as well as other analytics to determine what are the most popular patterns.
Good. Okay.
So now let's take a look at the brand new real user monitoring that's being released in a couple of weeks here at Keynote.
So it occurs to me, Abel, as you bring up the demonstration. So a couple things. One is if you're in the audience and you have any questions, either now or as Abel goes through the demonstration, please do feel free to use the Q&A panel. Again, if you're in kind of your maximize mode, so to speak, so that you can see the demonstration, which actually we would highly encourage you do, so you can maximize the real estate on your screen to see all the good stuff here. You will have to kind of pop out of that in order to get to the Q&A module. But feel free to ask any questions at any time, and then we'll address them here at the end of the presentation. All right, so it looks like we've got a very interesting dashboard here, April.
And I just want to confirm, I think Monique is the one that's not in mute mode. Can you see my screen, Monique?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So if you're familiar with Keynote's Real User Monitoring product, this screen should be very familiar to you. However, this is the next version of Real User Monitoring for Keynote. And some of the things that we asked ourselves is, there's a lot of data that we're collecting from real users, how do we organize it and how do we make it more actionable to you? Because you have a benchmark of maybe your product description page. But for real user, there's thousands of product description pages that are being traversed through the different users. So some of the new features that we've launched is being able to categorize pages just by their characteristics. So you can now aggregate all of your product description pages using tokens, so that you can now say anything that has this particular pattern is a product description page, which then you can trend and analyze against your synthetic. So now you have apples to apples comparisons of product description page as tested by synthetic, and then the aggregate of all product description pages as traversed by the users. We've also added a user journey configuration, so you can say that if a user starts here and ends at, if a user goes to the login page and ends in the setup parameters, that's the transaction that I want to capture, and how long is it going to take. And then the last is we added a concept called funnels. And funnels are multiple journeys that go down into your conversion. So if you're trying to sell a hotel room, for example, you go into your search, and then you have your action of can they execute a search and get a page back? Then can they view a specific details for the hotel and track that separately? And then finally get to that reservation part and then track it down so you can see how the success of every one of those different transactions funnel down into the final conversion. Same thing for subscription. If you're selling news articles, things like that, getting into that funnel allows you to view the success of each one of your areas or your key journeys and how they end up as your particular conversion. So now that we have all of these things set up, we can go back into our real users tab and then start adding widgets. So if you're familiar with this before, you saw that we had a limited number of widgets with some of them grayed out as just coming soon. They're no longer grayed out. They're here. They're not coming soon anymore. And we have our funnel widget, and then we have these new widgets that you can add synthetic information into this dashboard or add real and synthetic information to this dashboard, and allows you to visualize all of those things together in one place. So let's play around with some of these. A pie chart, which was something that was not available in the past. It was just a teaser there. So let's say we want browsers, and we want the browser version as well. And then I want to see for the last day, how does that browser demographic look for my site? Which are the most important browsers? This is Keynote.com, and you know that we are currently using IE9 to do most of our measurements and Firefox to do most of our measurements. So a large chunk of that is our synthetic data coming in and driving a lot of this traffic. But you can see how that breaks down for your specific site. And hopefully I've conveyed some good things about this that you'll get excited and start wanting to use this, because as Keynote customers, one of the things that we've decided is for every Keynote customer, you get 1 million page views a month for free. So you can start bringing that all of these data into your views, into your reports as part of the Keynote suite. Let's add another widget. Let's look at our funnel. So this is a funnel that we've set up with multiple transactions. Let's look at the Explore measurements. Again, we are in a pre-production environment, so it's always very dicey during these live demos when you're on a pre-production environment. But here we can see how our funnel for each one of those steps is performing, how many people are hitting them, where are they sort of dropping off, and then that specific transaction goes up. I can also go in and look at multiple, again, pre-production, success hit, your conversion rate, your time to do the entire transaction. All of these metrics are available as part of the, so here's the cancel rate. They're just not displaying correctly here for me. success count, and then being able to go in and visualize all of these metrics. So how many entered and how many exited, and being able to see what that success rate of the funnel was. And then on our widgets here, we also have our new bar charts widget that allows us to go in and see number of hits, user experience by country. And now we can start looking at what the experience is, number of hits, and start looking at how each one of those is affected by performance and by geography where things are coming from. As with any of our widgets, if you've been familiar, you have the global filter here where you can go in and say, okay, I want the custom time frame, or I want the last day, the last hour. I want a specific geography, so if it's only for the United Kingdom, I can filter things just by that United Kingdom, and then I can say arithmetic mean, geometric mean, and then submit, and all the widgets redraw themselves based on what you've selected in your filter, and you can add multiple dashboards as well. And one additional feature that we have here is in the past, when you created one of these line widgets, you had to filter everything out by page. No longer. You can go in here and select your page URL or select your page category, and now you're able to just measure that specific page within your dashboard without changing the experience of the entire dashboard, just to track that specific page.
So some of the, I presume in this environment here, the synthetic comparisons, maybe we don't necessarily have instrumented?
Correct.
Okay. But this is great. It's really interesting, and I think what one of the key takeaways is, you know, again, we're really trying to bring the best of the synthetic data that you have available, as well as the real user data in context, to be able to have a truly informed and very unique environment to be able to do performance analytics, really. Because it's the analysis of performance, not only in terms of it being reactive, but from a proactive position that we think really drives improvement and can help not only deliver stronger value proposition for performance relative to the business outcome, but help close that kind of language gap, so to speak, that may exist with articulating how performance is driving business results.
And I mean, things like the chart that I just drew here, where you can see your user experience versus how many pages per session on average, and seeing how slower the site gets, maybe the lower that number gets, because people start abandoning and they don't want to move forward and visit your site, and that's your engagement right there. The more pages they visit, if you're actually sending out the ads, or it's a revenue generating site, you want them to have a high number of pages because you're putting that many more ad impressions in front of the user.
So Emil, how does all this work? I mean, what do our customers need to do? We launched Real User Monitoring a while ago. We've had a lot of uptake, a lot of interest. But you know, how can customers take advantage of this? What's mechanically involved with making this work?
So one of the big things that we're doing for this next release is once we launch in the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to go right here in My Keynote under the Real Users tab, and the moment you hit it, you'll be able to say, yes, I want to opt in, and it'll activate the system for a free trial, as well as your 1 million page views for free. So now you just have to go here into the tag setup, and this is my pre-production environment, so it's not pre-populated. But here you can see, I can actually go into my production environment. We'll go to our tag setup and just copy and paste this block of code into your tag management system, either be in Cyton, Telium, whatever it is, and immediately you'll start collecting all of this information from all of your pages. You'll be able to throttle it down so that you can manage your experience, but for the first few weeks that you opt in, we want to capture 100% of your traffic. We want to capture everything so you can see the value of your entire site as it's visible from all the different geographies and all the different users. And we are, right now, it's very exciting looking at dashboards of our large customers that have 30, 40 million page views per day. It's very exciting data because it's all dynamic, it's all coming in. And I was like, oh, that's really great. And then I had a call with them and they're like, oh, we love it. We're going to add it into our entire site. And I was just taken aback. Oh, 40 million page views is just a portion of your site. It's not the entire thing. But one of the beauties about having this big data architecture is that we can handle all of the different load for multiple sites. So it's always fast, it's always real time, and we're able to do this for you. We're a performance company, and one of the questions that we always get is, well, is this going to affect my performance? So our tag is an asynchronous tag, so it's not going to block any content from loading. We have used multiple vendors to distribute the tag around the world so that you're going into the closest tag to your users. And it's a very small tag, and we've seen that the tag responds on average under 100 milliseconds when it's called and deployed on any site.
Super.
So Monique, do you see? Let me go. I don't know if I can see any questions.
Maybe go back to yeah.
So at this point, I invite anyone on the webinar to ask any questions using our Q&A.
Yeah, so Abel, we already have a couple of questions. One of them is, can I use Keynote real user monitoring with my APM system?
So yes, real user monitoring is independent of any APM system. It's browser based. So one of the key advantages of being browser based is that you're seeing the performance and you're seeing the experience right from the end user's perspective. So how the browser, how the JavaScript that you created, how it's executing, and how it's affecting their experience. And then you can use those data to be able to see what's happening in the back end versus what's happening in the front end of the browser, and see, well, if that slowdown is caused because somebody released a JavaScript file that's too big, it's causing a lot of performance problems that way, or is it really something that's happening in my database where I'm having a really slow call when I'm trying to search for something and the server is not really responding back with the results quite quickly.
And it's really important, I think, to just to highlight the implementation of real user monitoring, or RUM, as people tend to call it, is super lightweight, right? It's very fast, it's very easy, and as soon as you deploy the code, the snippet, the tag, you get data. And that's a really important, that's an important aspect of the service to emphasize, because unlike perhaps, a large application performance management or performance monitoring solution that you may need to install and implement over time, that needs to have a lot of instrumentation, that may need to be configured and tweaked, RUM is ready to go kind of right out of the box, right? It's delivered as a service, and so really the time to value, so to speak, is exceptionally fast. And so it plays very well, it plays very nicely with really any APM solution that you might want to implement.
Well, great. Any other questions? I saw some of our technical consultants on the line. You can get your questions out now for me because I may not take your call later. Any additional questions on how RUM plus synthetic, how we visualize, and all the different information that you can get out of the product?
One thing that occurred to me, Abel, is that some of the things that you were demonstrating earlier with the page categorization and kind of the funnel mapping, again, that notion of a user journey, how would you suggest, what would be your recommendation or your opinion for how a customer might take advantage of that configuration capability?
So one of the biggest things is to look at your current web analytics and see what those systems are telling you what those user journeys are, so that we can map those entry and exit points. Or even if the entry and exit points are fairly logical, of login to purchase or search to cart checkout, being able to just define beginning and end, and then just looking at all of the users that enter that path and how many exit into the conversion is really the way to go. And looking at your pages and how your site is structured, what pages would you categorize as descriptions, which pages do you categorize as knowledge-based articles, which pages do you categorize in all the different ways, and doing the upfront work into categorizing everything, so that when you go back to your dashboard, you can now say, okay, this versus that. And using your synthetic is also a perfect way, because you already know what you're measuring, you already know what your key pages are that you're reporting on, and being able to look at all those pages and say, okay, this is a page that is similar to all of these others, so I'm going to create a category for that and be able to do that.
Right, and based on some of the feedback we got even from that poll, it sounds like that process is kind of similar to the process that customers are using today to inform their synthetic transaction descriptions or scripting. That's great. Let's see, do we have any other questions? One of the things that maybe I would be good to highlight too, Abel, would be, mobile. How does this apply to mobile? Now, in the synthetic world, of course, Keynote offers really purpose-built monitoring options for mobile websites. But as we know today, regardless of whether or not you have a mobile website, you have mobile customers, right? And so how does RUN relate back to helping understand the perspective of the customer's experience, even if that experience is being driven from, let's say, a tablet?
Yeah, so one of the things that with our RUN we can do is detect the device type. So one of the things that we use to track all of your digital channels is look at the tablet, the device that's coming in. And we had a really interesting conversation with a customer saying that, no, it's okay, we don't have any mobile customers because we don't have a mobile site. We deploy this tag, and suddenly they're seeing that maybe 20% of their traffic is coming from mobile devices onto their site. They're getting their ugly, big desktop site on their little mobile phone, but apparently their product is compelling enough that people still want to access it over the mobile device. So having that tag deployed universally across the site, you're able to look at your performance. Even if you don't have a mobile site, I can guarantee that people are using their mobile device to go and access your site through on mobile over a carrier network, and probably not having the best experience in the world doing it.
And in that case, the data that we were able to provide, was that illuminating and informative?
It was shocking, to say the least, looking at the large percentage of traffic that was coming in just from mobile devices onto their non-mobile sites.
Right. Yeah, it's really important. The context of the individual, your customer, in their moment of engagement is different. It's unique, right? And we tend to sometimes there can be a risk, especially when we're using synthetic services like Keynote, maybe to not necessarily have as an informed and a broadened view of what your real customer's experience is based on the context that they are coming into engaging with you with. So that's a very important thing. Having the breadth of this data can be really, I think, game-changing for a lot of folks. Great. Monique, do we have any other questions at this time?
I think this is it. There was one question about the impact of JavaScript tags on performance, but I think, Abel, you...
I already answered that one.
Yeah,
So-
you already answered that one, exactly. So I think that's about it.
Okay, great.
Well, great. I mean, we have 10 minutes, so we can end.
Return some additional time to everybody's day.
Exactly. I just posted the presentation in the audience view, so for all the attendees, you can download a PDF of the slides.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining. And if you have additional questions that come up later on as you're thinking about RUM, feel free to email myself, Aaron, or your local Keynote technical consultant, and we'll be more than happy to help you out.
And if you are a customer, and again, you haven't yet had an opportunity to experience what real user monitoring can do for you in either a limited fashion or a full-blown fashion, right? Take advantage of what Abel had referred to earlier in the presentation, which is, our new offer for all customers for a free 1 million page view experience, essentially. That's free forever. That's not a trial. You can take advantage of that and get value with no additional cost and begin to really explore and understand how real user information, in addition to your synthetic or quality data, can help really improve your understanding of and hopefully engagement with customers in real time. So take advantage of that new opportunity, and as Abel said, when we complete this release, it'll be even easier to do that right in the context of your My Keynote experience.
Correct. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.